At this time, I would like to introduce Kelsey Kreitz. Kelsey is a sophomore nursing major from Ney, Ohio. She is president of our Student Nursing Association, and she also has been very involved with Christian mission outreach programs to 3 different countries. She's been in Kenya, Honduras, and Mexico, and active with our campus ministries here. So Kelsey, please come and bless the food, and then President Fell will introduce our speaker.
Would you please bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today with thankful hearts and all the blessings that you have given to us. You are a gracious Savior who loves us unconditionally, even though we fall short of your glory each and every day. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here together this morning to learn from Mr. Polgar. Open our hearts and minds to what he has to share with us. We ask that you have blessed this food that we have ate, and that you would go before us, and our words and our actions would point to you and for your glory and your honor. Lord, we lift this prayer up to you in your name. Amen.
Good morning. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce our special guest speaker, David Ryan Polgar, a pioneering tech ethicist who paved the way for the hotly debated issues around Facebook, privacy, ethical design, digital well-being, and what it means to be human in the digital age. What it means to be human is a question we ask on our campus almost every day. He is often featured in the media, including CBS This Morning, Fast Company, Sirius XM, Washington Post, Can He Do That podcast, and many others. David is the founder of All Tech is Human, an initiative to better align technology with the human interests of users that is holding an ethical tech summit in New York City on October 20th. With a background as an attorney and educator, he's an advocate for incorporating a greater diversity of background and experiences with the creation and deployment of technology. David is the co-host of the podcast and New York City live show Funny as Tech, where he is paired with UCB comedian Joe Leonardo to tackle the thorniest issues in tech inside a comedy theater. He is a frequent writer, Quartz IBM, Think Leaders, Dell Perspectives, and global speaker, 3-time TEDx speaker, the School of the New York Times, the Next Web, Harvard Business School. David is currently working on a digital citizenship class for adults at Skillshare and a tech ethics hub for college students, Cengage. He is an advisor for Hack Mental Health and hashtag I Can Help. Please welcome David Polgar.
All right. Thank you. All right, first off, how's everybody doing this morning? Everybody have your coffee? You're ready to go? Because we're going to need to put our thinking caps on, all right? As mentioned, I have a background as a tech ethicist. Before that, my background is as an attorney and college professor. Probably about 2012, I started pivoting my career because I was looking around saying, wait a minute. What we're holding in our hands, it's impacting every aspect of how I live and how I breathe and how I interact with other people. As much as we see this as just a tech issue, this isn't a tech issue. This is a society issue. This is a human relationship issue. And that's one of the frameworks I want to think about before we dive in today, because we're going to have about 45 minutes of conversation and then some Q&A. We're going to have some dialogue about these issues. Is that there's no right answer right now. We're tackling these thorny topics because the technology that we've created and that we are creating in the future doesn't offer clear-cut answers about what we should do and maybe how it will impact us. So what we're talking about today, really just some of the best practices when we are creating something, because everybody's sitting with us, right? you're coming about it from a different perspective, whether you're a student, whether you're in industry, academic, but we all play a major role in improving the system that we have. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, to just kind of set that up. So I like to say that, again, technology, it's altered the human condition. How we live, right? Completely disrupted. In startup land, we like to talk about disruption. But how has that also disrupted the way we live? Look around. Go to a restaurant. It's dramatically changed the way we live. How we learn? There's some augmented reality of just picturing something, having pop up. We have VR, AR, XR, all these different types of augmented reality. How is this impacting how we conceive? Right? Here we are in a university setting. How is this altering how we learn? Right? How we love? How we find each other? How we find love? Even how we die. This is one I love. These people sometimes get shocked. Well, it's impacted the way I die. This is a shot from the website of Eternime. This is true site. Let's think about what this does. You see kind of the setting? They kind of say, hey, here's our added value, right? You can preserve your parents' memories. But what Eternime does is it basically allows you, right, if you're the individual, to theoretically live forever. Because how you are interacting today can really be predicted into an algorithm that then is made into either a chatbot or some type of avatar, so your loved ones could chat with you in the future, right? That's the promise they say. You could live on forever as a digital avatar. Well, this is what we want to start doing. Because basically, in 2019 and moving forward, we are starting to peel away the ability to really create some incredible features, some incredible life-altering, society-shifting types of technologies. But one of the major takeaways that I want each one of you to think about today is we shouldn't stop at that one layer, right? We want to just apply a process, these three kind of questions that we're going to apply, but the main argument of really everything that I'm saying today, if there is one change, one positive change that we can actually make in society, and this is what I do with this organization that's based in New York and has 4 events throughout the country this year called All Tech is Human. One of the things that we do is we unite a broad range of academics, students, technologists, policymakers, politicians, advocates, organizational leaders to actually increase the level of thoughtfulness that's going into the product, that's going into how we create something. So if there is one win that we can have with all of technology, right, and especially social media is a space that I deal a lot with day to day. If we can have one win, the win is going to be we are just increasing the amount of reflection that goes on in the process. Easier said than done, of course, because anybody who works in an entrepreneurial or tech space is used to the pressure of innovation. We like to say innovate or die. It's like the lifestyle of a shark, and we say Shark Tank, right? We apply the features of saying that we need to either move forward and hurry up, we need to move fast and break things, or else we're going to get crushed by a competitor. Well, one of the things I think that we're seeing in 2019 is that the ethos that Mark Zuckerberg originally said years ago for Facebook, and I think has been adopted by the larger ethos of Silicon Valley to move fast and break things, well, we certainly have broken things, right? We've taken a platform that was made to connect people, that had the aspirations to increase democracy worldwide, bring us closer together, as we see have no differences, whether you're in Honduras, Mexico, or Kenya, right? We start seeing that we're all people. Therefore, that should increase in a kind of a kumbaya type of moment. But obviously, that's not the way that the Facebook or social media has played out. Well, one of the reasons is that we did not insert that layer of thoughtfulness to say, you gave me the best case scenario, which is natural, because a creator is naturally going to have blinders on, because they are going to see something and then say, well, how do I create a solution from that? Well, one of the main kind of aspirations for the organization I have, All Tech is Human, is that we basically need to have the setting that we have today. This morning, we have a diverse group of people, a collection of ideas that have different frame of reference, that are inserting different backgrounds, that can approach an issue and say, you know what, David, I think you're wrong, because I think you're forgetting X. And then another person comes in and says, well, wait a minute. You mentioned Y, but I've experienced Z, and you don't want to forget Z. We have not currently created a system where ideas are challenged in a way that it shines a light on blind spots, right? If you like metaphors, the way I like to think about it is that each one of us is carrying a flashlight, right? And we're shining a light on these blind spots. And that everybody is going to be limited in their perspectives, right? I have blind spots. I have a certain background, like I said, as an attorney and educator. Okay, that means I have a certain spotlight that I understand and I can see. But I'm always going to have natural blind spots. And it seems like one of the issues, and something we can take away and insert, is that if you assume that you are the be-all, end-all, that you can create something perfectly, and it's going to allow for this best-case scenario, you're missing out on the opportunity of somebody else who has a different perspective or spotlight, and that can actually shine a light on that and say, you know what? It's not your fault, but you can't frankly see everything because you don't have this experience that I have. You don't have this specialty that I have. You don't have this ability to actually showcase what could potentially go wrong. So today, we're talking about a few main points, right? We're going to be looking at this process that I like to apply. Again, asking more questions, being more reflective. Everything that we're here today to do. And it's not easy. Think about your day-to-day life, right? We're all kind of living in a perpetual state of distraction. A state where we're always saying we're too busy. We're always running around. We are reacting to our smartphone that's saying, look at me. It's buzzing, right? You want to talk about Pavlovian dog type of experiment? We have something that is constantly pulling at our attention. So as we are perpetually distracted, how do we also find those moments to step away and say, let me reflect on this. How is this working out? Is this a good idea? Right? So we're talking about that process, but we're also going to get into another side issue that impacts this, which is the problem of misaligned business interests, which is a major issue that's going on in tech, which frankly has not been fully explored from the larger kind of media perspective about how we deal with these issues. But it has informed and led to a lot of the problems that we do see today. Also, potentially most importantly, what's the role that we play? And I think that's a major part that I want to emphasize for all of us today. Is that I think a lot of times we can feel disenfranchised, right? Because on one hand, let's take something everybody knows. With Facebook, we can say, well, it's for 2.2 billion people, so everybody here today, besides a few people, is probably on Facebook. You're saying, well, it's impacting how I get my news. It's impacting actually what friends I see, because it's an algorithm, which is black box, which you don't understand, which is proprietary. Yet, you feel like, well, do I have decision-making power for how this is created? Do I have any ability to affect that platform? I think a lot of times we have felt maybe an inability to alter that course. But one of the things that I would love to emphasize today is that each one of us plays an essential role and can actually impact the larger conversation that is happening. So even though the products, let's say, that we use or the apps on our phone are made typically in Silicon Valley, we, as users, as digital citizens, as active participants in a political process, have the ability to dramatically alter how these products are made, how they're regulated, how they're being altered, right? So that's something we should not forget. Because I think oftentimes we like to just focus on one area and we say, well, wait a minute, it's tech companies, right? As opposed to saying, are we one of these spokes in the wheel? How is the behavior that we are doing? How is the way that I interact online, the way that you interact online, the way that we vote with our wallets, right? With the products that we are attracted to and utilize, how does that impact the larger ecosystem of how these products are, one, developed, and two, can operate? That's a major part of this equation. And then last, we're going to be discussing what this actually means. And this is the positive part, right? We always want to end on a positive note. And I've certainly seen in my own work over the years that there is a movement afoot. Because a lot of times I think we can say, oh my God, now I'm kind of depressed. What's going to happen in this issue? But I will say there are a lot of people and organizations who are spending their time and their focus to alter this course and to create material that can be freely used by other people that are, let's say, in businesses and want to make more ethical decisions, want to use checklists and toolkits and videos. That's the positive part. And then what we want to inject in each one of us is that we need to start shifting our leadership in how we create and really how we consume, to start viewing it less as a passive consumer and more as a proactive individual that's cognizant of how our behavior impacts other people, right? So going back to the Eternime, and that was the avatar that I kind of showcased, their screenshot from their website, of basically saying, you have the promise to live forever, right? The way we want to apply some type of processes to this is that we should ask, can it be done? Should it be done? And what will happen if it's done, right? If we ask these three questions, we can start peeling away the layers of the onion to determine what's underneath. So just walking through this, can it be done? This is typically, I'm sure a lot of you have seen kind of Jurassic Park, and a lot of people like to mention that line, right? Just because the Jeff Goldblum kind of utters, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. But the main premise, and that's kind of an allegory type of movie and book. Before that, the reason why that's important is because it's kind of our Oppenheimer moment, right? From nuclear power and the atomic bomb, that we hold a lot of power with how we can alter human history. We hold a lot of power with the products that we can create and the ideas that we come up with and what we can do. And I think this is where a lot of developers and engineers have kind of stopped the equation. So if you are an engineer, and again, this is not necessarily somebody's fault, this is just how somebody thinks. If you're an engineer, you're naturally biased to say, give me a problem, and now find a solution. I'm sure a lot of you have done those kind of like, tests where somebody says, okay, here's matches, and I want you to build something, right? You're given a problem, and then you say, well, find a solution with this. Well, with the work that I do, it's actually the inverse. If an engineer is seeing a problem and then finding a solution, I come in from a different angle to say, that's the solution, but what are the problems created from that solution? Right? What has happened is we have not allowed for the spidering of discussion to critique the process in a way that would actually improve it, to reduce negative externalities and unintended consequences, as we'll see kind of in these future steps, right? So should it be done? So let's take that Eternime, right? Again, the way that says you can live forever, you can be an avatar, and I can talk to you 200 years, or actually my relatives will talk to you 200 years from now, right? So what do we think of that question? Should that be done? What do you think? Any ideas? Should each one of us be able to live online forever? Okay? Because this is where it's not easy. Because on one hand, we think, wait, this is the classic story of human history. Ponce de Leon, we want to live forever, the fountain of youth. Right? Nobody wants to die. Because any time, right, this is why men at a certain age buy Corvettes, because they realize that they're mortal. And they say, my God, before, in my 20s, I was invincible, because you didn't think of that. And then if your knees start hurting, you say, wait a minute, does that mean that I'm going to be in a graveyard? Does that mean that I'm going to be forgotten? Right? That's huge. This is huge, right? So on one hand, I told you about a product that says, oh yeah, you can Skype with your loved ones, your deceased loved ones. That sounds simple. And you say, well, that's kind of crazy. Maybe that's kind of cool. I don't know. Like, you Skype with dead people? But then we think, well, wait, let's back up. And I'm not saying either way, because you can have your own thought and your own opinion on it. The point is, we need to extend how we consider this. Because what if we could live forever, right? Let's imagine that one of you does this and lives forever, right? Does that mean that, let's imagine, unfortunately, you die in like a bus hits you today, right? Sometimes we have to get dark with these issues. And does that mean your significant other is then going to seek comfort in a facsimile of you? Are they going to ask questions? Are they going to say, do you still love me? Does the program then set it to wish you a happy anniversary? And if it does say happy anniversary 10 years after your death, what does that do to the person receiving it? Do they say they just got a message from you? Or do they view that that's not you? How does that impact Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grieving? The last stage is acceptance. Do I accept that you've died if I can still have a conversation with you? How do I move on if you're perpetually there? Right? So these are not questions that a creator might have thought. Because the way that a creator is thinking is saying, here's how you talk. Here's what you like. You like the Boston Red Sox. Therefore, I'm going to create an avatar that knows the sports scores and say, hey, did you know that the Red Sox are playing the Yankees? And can actually quiz the other person and say, hey, the Red Sox won. You say, well, yes, this person liked the Red Sox. But is it them? You want to talk about what it means to be human. One of the big frustrations that's going on right now, that frankly a lot of people aren't pointing out, is that there is a major friction that is happening because as emerging tech has become incredibly impressive, it's basically threatening our very idea of saying, am I unique? If Amazon knows what my next purchase is going to be, do I have free will? Am I unusual? My mom told me I'm a snowflake because, you see, it's unique, right? Everybody's a snowflake, everybody's unique. But if we can create a computer program that can predict everything I was going to say, then am I unique? Right? Think about when you're typing an email right now through Gmail. Gmail's got Smart Compose that is basically predicting what your next statement should be. The new feature that they have, LinkedIn is incorporating a lot of these features as well. So it's basically saying, as I'm ending an email, maybe 89% of the time, I like to say, enjoy your day, exclamation point. So it's going to prompt me. It's going to say, David, I'm going to save you some time because you know what? I heard that people need more time. So it's going to say, I'm going to fill in that it should say, enjoy your day. This seems simple because now I can write quicker emails. But is it simple? Of course it's not simple. Because now, does that dilute my uniqueness? Does that alter what I was going to say? Maybe I was going to say, carry an umbrella. But Smart Compose prompted me to say, enjoy your day. Therefore, the recipient receives something that says, enjoy your day. So did they receive it from me? Or did they receive it from my bodified version? A lot of the research that I'm focused on right now is that we have talked about humanizing our bots, but are we also being bodified as humans? Right? Something we don't always consider, but a lot of emerging tech that we are creating, that's what it does. I'm sure most of you, especially in the business community, are on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, right? Consider some of the features next time you use it. When they say, wait, you just connected with somebody. Did you know they like this? I'm going to give you a sentence to say, to start it off. You just need to click this button. But if you click this button, the person receives a message that has even an exclamation point. Think about what we've done. So are you enthusiastic about your connection? The person thinks so because they received the message that they have zero ability to know that you just clicked a button as opposed to had thought behind your message. So did they receive an enthusiastic message from you? If LinkedIn and others are about connections and relationships, did you build your relationship? No, right? So a lot of questions that we're going to have to ask in the future kind of moving forward with this, right? Last part of this overall process. What will happen if this is done? This is the idea of unintended consequences and negative externalities. Next time there's a social media scandal, listen to a lot of what the statements are. They generally fall under a certain line, right? And again, I deal with a lot of these folks. And the line is usually going to be the Amazing Grace kind of line, like, you know, I was blind and now I see. There's a natural narrative arc that is usually built in this to basically say, wow, we built Twitter to spread democracy across the world and spread news. I didn't know it was going to be used by authoritarian governments to repress speech. I didn't know it would be used to troll or something like that, or build up hate. The question we should ask is, if we really buy that statement that we had no idea, well, the way I would push back on that statement is to say, but I had that idea, and you had that idea. So if other people had these ideas, and that's not impacting how something is created and thought about, that is a huge fault of the current process to say that we are not incorporating contrarian thinkers. If they are not incorporating somebody who says, yes, but here's 5 ways that this could go wrong. If you're not incorporating that natural process to challenge your best case scenario, then that is going to be problematic, right? Right now, we're going to queue up a video. And this video, you might have seen this, came out about 6 or 8 months ago. It was a Google demo, and it's called Google Duplex. And basically what you're going to see by the CEO of Google is he's going to kind of walk through this demo of saying, hey, we all need more time. Again, one way we can save people time is we can create virtual assistants for them that can do a lot of their busy work. And you know what takes a lot of time? Is calling and making appointments, is setting up a haircut appointment, or making a reservation at a restaurant that you want to go to. So what we're going to play right now is this demo. And what I want you to think about is, how are we applying the process? Is the process, the 3 steps of can it be done? Should it be done? And what will happen if it is done? And I also want you to pay close attention to how the audience reacts to this and what blind spots they might have in their own kind of conception of this. So we'll just start that video right now. So again, pretty fascinating.
For our assistant is to help you get things done. It turns out a big part of getting things done is making a phone call. You may want to get an oil change schedule, maybe call a plumber in the middle of the week, or even schedule a haircut appointment. You know, we are working hard to help users through those moments. We want to connect users to businesses in a good way. Businesses actually rely a lot on this, but even in the US, 60% of small businesses don't have an online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
So this is a virtual bot that's calling.
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
That was a real call you just heard. The amazing thing is the assistant can actually understand the nuances of conversation. We've been working on this technology for many years. It's called Google Duplex. It brings together all our investments over the years in natural language understanding, deep learning, text-to-speech. By the way, when we are done, the assistant can give you a confirmation notification saying your appointment has been taken care of. Let me give you another example. Let's say you want to call a restaurant, but maybe it's a small restaurant which is not easily available to book online. The call actually goes a bit differently than expected. So take a listen.
See how may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people? When? Today?
Next
Tonight?
Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we reserve for like after like 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. Bye bye.
All right, we can probably.
Again, that was a real call. We have many of these examples where the calls quite don't go as expected, but the assistant understands the context, the nuance. It knew to ask for wait times in this case and handle the interaction gracefully. Look,
All right. So what we saw there is, again, the awesome potential for technology. We've classically talked about something called the Turing test from Alan Turing, which basically says, and it's also called the imitation game, which basically says our challenge and our way that we know that computers can think is if somebody can interact with it and the imitation is so strong that they don't know that they are interacting with a computer. Well, what we noticed in this is, one, the crowd, they were excited. They were saying, great. You created a computer system, a virtual assistant that can mimic our human ability to say and ah and gotcha. That to be human is to not have perfect speech. So I need to naturally add imperfections to mimic the natural imperfections of humanity. But the flip side of that is, should that be the goal? Also, if you are the person on the other end, how do you feel about interacting with a bot? Do you have the right to know that you're talking to something that is not human? Right? As soon as that came, even though the crowd was so enthusiastic, people like myself and others said, did you forget something? Did you forget that the average person is going to obviously want to know if they're talking to a real person? And that as we expand our ability to mimic the nuances of our language, of our human language, we cannot forget the natural respect that is usually given to a person about their time and their emotional energy, right? Because I want you to consider how you're sitting at the table today, right? And how you interacted with one another before we started. as you were getting to know each other. And you said, what's your name? What do you do? What do you focus on? How do you like your coffee? How do you like the weather? Do you have an umbrella? Right? We're connecting as people. And one of the things that I think we might be forgetting is that how we interact with another is not actually about just communication as a language, right? As just, here are my words. The nonverbal are actually some of the most important aspects of our interactions, right? You might have said, how was your day? And then if the person sitting across from you said, fine, then I would say, you said fine. Fine was the language, right? But you went, I'm reading your nonverbal cues. You don't seem like you're fine. So I'm employing my empathetic skills, which take my energy, my emotional energy, to say, wait, are you sure you're fine, or are you having a bad day? Because as another human, I care about other humans. And I'm going to expend my energy on other people, and you expend your energy on other people because you care, right? And you want to relate to other people and know what's going on. So what is completely missing from this discussion is if we are mimicking this nuance of saying and ah, and the other person is employing their skills of saying, oh wait, are you sure? Is everything all right? Right? So let's take this to the natural conclusion. If I'm interacting with a bot, and the bot is saying, okay, well, I need to pretend I'm human, so I'm going to start putting in ums and ahs and pauses. But as a human, if I think I'm interacting with another human, I have learned to analyze those pauses to say, maybe it's not all right. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Do you need a better explanation? Right? So is it respectful? Is it fair for this virtual assistant to be interacting with a human, and that human is thinking they're interacting with another human, therefore they're giving their time and energy? Well, again, what seemed obvious to me and others was that you need to have some level of transparency. That the virtual assistant could have easily just said, hi, I'm part of Google Assistant, right? I'm interacting with you. I'm making a haircut for this person. And then the human on the other end can drop some of their empathetic kind of skills and say, okay, now we're just conveying words. It's base communication as opposed to enhanced communication that takes emotional energy. This was such a strong pushback when it came out that within a week, Google had to change course and say, oh wait, we're going to back up on Google Duplex. Whoops, huge negative PR push. We need to be more transparent. Therefore, in the future, Google Duplex is going to be transparent. The reason why I like to bring this up is because that's all fine and good, but the larger question should be, how does a multi-billion-dollar company go through their entire process and say, hey, we're going to get excited, we're going to be talking about thousands of people, this is going to be talked about in the news, and nobody had the ability, whether they said it or not, or whether it's incorporated so they can impact, nobody had the ability to say, wait, shouldn't there just be transparency? Should we notify the other person that they are talking to a bot? That is what I want everybody to start taking away, is that so many of the issues that we're seeing in the news that have happened, and frankly has made my life a lot busier recently, is that we have failed to incorporate a process. We have failed to incorporate other ideas. This presentation should not have happened this way, because somebody at the table should have just said, Cool technology, but what about the idea of transparency? Let's bring in a psychologist. Let's bring in a philosopher. How does this impact us? Right? So no matter what background you have, there is an essential role to play, because one of the misconceptions that is being hammered is that we think of tech for technologists. Not true. If technology has altered the human condition, its natural response is a societal one that includes the saints and the poets and the philosophers and psychologists and academics, everybody. If this is impacting how I talk to people, I don't just want a bunch of people who are only thinking, let's make cool technology in the process. Because then we'll just wind up with something that, if you watch sci-fi movies, looks like a dystopian future. We don't want a dystopian future, right? We want a nice utopian or better future. So as we're actually, could we move one of the slides? It seems like this kind of got caught up. We're going to kind of move to some different kind of examples with this. Right. Let's just make sure. I think my clicker might have kind of got caught off. Okay. Well, what we're setting up and what we're going to see on this particular slide, let me just make sure. Okay, good. Is that there are so many scenarios that we need to apply this process to. One of the things that I'm amazed by in my line of work is that there are so many bubbles that we're living in, right? I'm constantly living in a bubble, so I need to break out of it, right? I do most of my work in Manhattan, I'm in San Francisco, I'm in, parts of Europe. Of course I'm in a bubble, but I need to know that I'm in a bubble, right? To the Yiddish phrase, to an earthworm in horseradish, the world is horseradish, right? You make your conception of the world by the people that you're surrounded with. So one of the challenges that we have as humans is to actually break free of that and to say, what am I missing? Who am I not talking to? What did I not think of, right? So I want to walk through just two quick scenarios with this that I find kind of interesting. And the reason why I mentioned the bubble is because what I have found dealing with a lot of technologists is that the falsehood that is accepted as conventional wisdom is that we assume that all of society is on the same wavelength of understanding about what is happening in the technology that's being created. And sometimes I think we assume that no pushback is the same as a thumbs up. It's the same as approval. And it's absolutely not, because no pushback sometimes just means that we haven't thought about the issue. We haven't been exposed to this issue. So here's one that's fascinating. There is a massive rise, billions of dollars right now being spent on what they call human-computer interface, or brain-computer interface, a few different names that we use, neural lace, and others for it, based on the idea that our synapses in our brain actually correlate with what we're thinking. So as we are creating technologies like Oculus, that's owned by Facebook now, we might have the ability to actually read our thoughts. Right? This is not science fiction. This is happening. There's amazing videos where you can watch on YouTube of, let's say, a paraplegic who wants to play a game, and they can move something on the screen just with their thoughts. They can hook it up to a robotic arm and drink a can of soda just by thinking, move the arm up, right? That's great. That's positive impact. But now we need to start thinking, what are the different ways that this can go sideways? And how do I knock this off? A presentation that happened 2 years ago and now has kind of come back up to the news is that Facebook as a company has been looking into this technology. That in the future, they want to incorporate more virtual reality since they paid a lot of money for Oculus. So in the future, you might just be wearing a headset and you're interacting with other avatars, but because you're in a virtual world, you don't necessarily have the ability to type. So you might want to just think, hey, I want to tell my friend Andrew that we should hang out tonight. So I want to think this thought, and I want that thought to be sent to the network, right? They have shown how this works, that just by analyzing your brain, they'll know if you're thinking of a giraffe or an elephant. So what I want us to consider is, where are we at with 2019 with how people post on Facebook and Twitter and other social media? And what could possibly go wrong with the idea that what you think automatically gets uploaded? I wonder how this could go wrong, right? Yet we are spending a lot of money developing this technology. And this is why this is deep. This is actually why it's kind of philosophical. Because on one hand, you have the privacy concerns. Wait a minute, Facebook doesn't necessarily have a good track record of privacy. Now they literally have the technology to read our thoughts. How is that going to be incorporating? Hey, this person's thinking of Doritos. Now they're going to see a Doritos ad. Great, right? Do we have the human right to be left alone in our private archipelago of our brain? Right? Hasn't our human brain throughout history been a sanctuary? If I could read each one of your thoughts right now or earlier, a lot of you would be red-faced. A lot of you say, wait a minute, maybe I had a bad thought. Maybe I thought of something that I never want exposed. Maybe I thought of something so unusual that all throughout history, we have classically separated how we think and what we do, even in something like criminal law. The way we convict somebody of a crime is they do not commit a crime unless they both think something and act upon that thought. They have the mens rea, the mental state, and the actus reus, the act, right? If you just thought about doing something terrible, you're not convicted of it because we don't have a thought police, right? And that very idea is what a dystopian novel would talk about. And if we acted without thinking, then we're actually not convicted of a crime because it might have been a seizure or something like that where we couldn't control our movements. Well, what we should start thinking about is, as technology like this increases, how does that affect society? How does that impact criminal law, right? How does that impact our relationships? Does that mean that I should know everything that my wife is thinking? Even though we want loved ones to share everything with each other, do they still have the desire and the right to have their own privacy within the confines of their brain, of their mind? Is that something that we want to peel away? Right? Huge issues that we're going to be thinking about in the near term. Does anybody know who this person is? She's a star on Instagram. This is Lynn Maquela. She has over 1 million followers. Don't be jealous. So, Lynn Maquela is an interesting situation because she's not real. She's what they call a virtual influencer. which is we are creating lifelike avatars that can interact as humans. And there's even a lot of discussions online of maybe little Maquella is real. Yep, little Maquella is a real person. This is a whole new area that's exploding right now that we like to call synthetic media. So now if we apply this process and we say, okay, well, can we do this? Should we do this? Well, what will happen if we do this? Well, on one hand, our ability to create lifelike people, maybe that can be incredibly useful. We can create movies where we can have the actor, and this is being done, right? Even in recent Star Wars, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, right? She died in real life, yet they could use her likeness, depending on how she did her contracts, and then to actually have her in a movie, right? Hollywood obviously wants to utilize the ability to create virtual avatars or maybe your own kind of likeness. But now, how can this potentially go sideways? Let me think about this. How do we know if somebody usually commits a crime, let's say? We might pull up a video and we might say, look, here's this person walking into a bank. We have the video camera. I see their face. I recognize them. We think they're guilty. The technology and what we're creating with synthetic media, it offers us the ability to create a situation where we blur the lines between reality and fiction, where we can't tell if something happened or not. In the future, and this is the interesting prospect, we literally might not be able to trust our eyes because what we can create is so lifelike and so realistic that we are going to potentially accept it as real, right? If you see something right now, we accept it as real. But if we can create something that is virtual, a video, let's say, then how do we know if it's true? This is being tested out, and there's a couple interesting videos where they showcase, there's one with Donald Trump, there's one with Barack Obama, where they basically can make them say anything they want by splicing together certain clips, knowing their speech patterns, using this natural language processing to basically say, I'm going to have them to say, we're attacking North Korea. Well, what's the prospect of that? If all of a sudden on social media, we see a video that shows a president saying that we're attacking North Korea, does that mean that our president said we're attacking North Korea? Or is there the possibility that that's not real? How do we adjust to a system where we don't actually know, right? We think right now misinformation is a tough issue to solve, but it's minor league in comparison to the future that might be this intersection of media that we cannot fully kind of trust. So to kind of wrap everything together with this conversation before we get into some 15 minutes of like Q&A and dialogue, is that I want everybody to really take home that we need to inject this level of thoughtfulness, that we have created an idea, created a product, and then said, oops, as opposed to injecting a level of reflection, usually with a multidisciplinary approach that can say, right, can this be done? Should this be done? And what will happen if this is done? So thank you for having me, but we're going to now, I think, open it up for some questions. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I know some of you have 9 o'clock classes to attend or teach, and some of you have, no doubt, business appointments, etc. So I would just ask if you need to leave, please do so quietly, and otherwise David has graciously agreed to entertain some questions, and we have microphones.
Yeah.
Cindy and Jake have microphones.
You cannot send your virtual avatar to your class. So they're going to recognize if you're real or not.
So go ahead, and those of you who have questions, please raise your hand, and Jake or Cindy will come with the microphone.
I'm just curious, do you use Google Assistant at all?
We can't hear.
Hello.
Okay, can
Yeah.
you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I'm just curious, do you use Google Assistant at all?
I do a little bit, but I haven't used it in a dramatic kind of fashion. But one of the things I was kind of thinking about it is the very technology, we can never, I think, be purist about it, right? The very technology offers a lot of promise. Even myself, right, being fascinated with this issue and focused on it day to day, I just kind of want to turn it around where we are using it in the positive direction. So where I would love Google Assistant to actually play a part is if it understands, if I give it my consent, let's say, for understanding my calendar, and it knows, a lot of times, I live in Connecticut, I do my work in Manhattan, so I'm often on the train, it knows that I'm going into Grand Central, and it can say, okay, as my Google Assistant, it can say, David, I know that you're waking up at this time, you know, you're not very good about the weather, did you know it's going to rain today? Bring an umbrella. So imagine if my alarm goes off and my Google Assistant says, David, carry your umbrella, right? That could be something kind of positive. Did you have something kind of specifically with, I think, how we use Google Assistant? Okay. Yeah, but that's been a fascinating part. And something, actually, since you mentioned Google Assistant, to consider, which is not always brought up, is that Google has been, they've gone the idea that you want to still understand with Google Assistant that it's Google, whereas Apple and Amazon, they use Siri, all right, and Alexa. They've intentionally tried to humanize it, and there's the argument that it's gendered and that it perpetuates maybe stereotypes. However, there's an interesting play that's happening with, should we create human gendered names for our virtual assistants? Should we interact with them as friends? Are they our friends? Or should they be, as Google is, more like an omnipresent type of idea, and that you're still interacting with Google? So that's why actually they haven't come up with a name. So.
When you talk about the avatars, is this moving sideways? Could we look forward to in the future that all movies would be done by avatars, thus cutting down the cost of the overhead of having actors?
Yeah. There was an interesting lawsuit years ago with Back to the Future. Remember the movie Back to the Future? So the dad in Back to the Future, Crispin Glover, he didn't want to do Back to the Future 2. So he said, I'm not going to do Back to the Future 2. So the new actor that they hired, they said, okay, well, you can hire any actor. You can get fired as an actor. But what they did is they created prosthetics that they had from the first film, and they put it on the different actor to look exactly like Crispin Glover. So Crispin Glover sued and said, you basically didn't pay me, but then you wanted to project it as if it was me, right? So the idea of virtual avatars is not as simple, I think, as just saying, okay, well, we're just going to create these false characters like Lin Manuela, who maybe they can get their own audience. Okay, right? There's a touring artist in Japan who's been touring for 3 or 4 years who literally is just a holographic projection. But she gets people to show up and have concerts, and she's considered a she. So it's interesting. But the bigger problem is going to be if you're a human actor, and this is a whole legal nightmare right now. Well, as much as we say, yeah, great, then people are just going to see virtual avatars, the truth of the matter is the reason why a lot of times we see a movie is because we relate to a big-time actor, right? So if you're Will Smith, you have such cachet that's why they pay you $20 million. And that theoretically they could spend, $300,000 developing this avatar, and that's cheaper. But if people are seeing the movie that looks like Will Smith, that's why they pay him $20 million. The question that's going to come up is, well, then the technologist is going to say, I'm going to make an avatar that looks exactly like Will Smith. And then Will Smith is going to sue by saying, yes, but did you know in California I have the right to my likeness? And that if you're making an avatar that is confusing the general public, and that they're seeing the movie because they think it's me, then that's going to be problematic. So you do have a lot of those issues. But I think where it's also fascinating is a lot of times these movies, they want to continue with an actor after they're dead. So a lot of these actors are starting to think, okay, well, can that movie continue with me in like this avatar type of mentality? Can they project as if I'm doing something? And here's where this becomes really dicey. All right, let's imagine you're an actor. You actually, and you and your agent, you go through contract negotiations to say, here's what I would do and here's what I won't do. So you might say, for your own kind of beliefs, that you don't want to do something that is an ultra-violent movie, let's say, that has certain language or certain scenes, okay? So you're that actor, but now I can create an avatar of you, and you sign a contract that says, okay, I'm paying you this amount of money, but I can take your likeness when you're long and gone, and I can put it in another movie. So this is where it's going to be complicated, because that means 50 years from now, let's say you're that actor, and I would say, well, let's make another sequel of your movie. So I want to take you, but you're not alive. I'm going to take you, and I'm going to put you in a scene that's extremely graphic, extremely violent, that you as a living actor would have said no to, right? So an issue we're going to have is, do we have the right to decide what our avatar in the future does, right? And this is something, going back to Eternime with this, that we really need to consider, is that what do we want to allow, if we can extend ourselves, what do we want to allow ourselves to actually do? What are the limitations of that? If you're the Star Wars franchise, can they take Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia's likeness, and have her do anything they want? Does her estate, her family, do they have the right to say, she wouldn't want to say that, she wouldn't want to do that, this seems offensive, this seems to tarnish her image? It's not easy right now because legally you can't defame a dead person. We're actually going to have to change those laws eventually, because people are going to start saying, yes, but if we live online forever and you can't defame a dead person, do I still have my right to actually rest in peace, right? Think about on gravestones. For hundreds of years, we put in RIP, rest in peace. If we can extend ourselves in the future as avatars, can we rest in peace? Right? Our personality is actually going to continue for hundreds of years. And I think as a society, we're going to have to determine whether or not that's something we truly want.
Well, on that note, goodness, David, you've certainly given us a whole lot to think about. And I think I want Google Duplex. Oohs, ahs, or not, I want somebody calling the plumber and taking care of all of that. So I am sure that if you have questions, David will be hanging around here afterward and happy to answer additional questions. I want to thank Dr. Mary Jo Geisey, chair of our computer science department, because she is the one who brought David to our attention because she had heard him at a conference. And of course, her area, both the undergrad and the graduate program in data analytics, deals with all of this. And so wonderful for so many of our computer science students and other students to be here with us today as well. So once again, thank you to First Federal. Appreciate it very much. There are comment cards on your tables, ideas for other potential speakers or topics you are interested in. Please do let us know. And we certainly hope that you will come back on April 26th to hear Dan Owolabi speak on servant leadership today. Please join me in giving one more round of applause to David.